Brazen here. So far, no major technical difficulties. We're doing all right so far. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Today, I kind of want to go over some of the updates to my content because they did make a lot of changes. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. But yeah, so the last set of updates, originally I had started updating my content because there were some new mechanics I wanted to add. And then as I'm ready to release that, they came out with Home Chef. So there was like all this other stuff that it needed to get updated and added. And I'm sure you've seen other creators, it's taken a while to kind of get those updates done, but I'm finally there. And I'll kind of go over a timeline with you guys here in a little bit, but I wanted to start just kind of quickly. Most people already kind of know how to download my content, but I wanted to kind of just go over that briefly. Most of you guys know my site, brazenlotus.com, and you can get all my content from here. It's kind of separated into categories where you have your harvestables and stuff like that here. You can do your sorts here at the top. Like if you're looking for a berry, you can find it this way. And so we've got different categories up here based on kind of the type of content. So harvestables, this is your garden and stuff like that. Crafting, it's crafting recipes. Your cheese making, and your homesteading crafts. I like to call them as homesteading crafts. And then you have your food and drink recipes here, mods, objects, etc. So I just kind of wanted to go over this because I know that there's a lot of questions with how my content is structured. The way that it works is, say you want to download, the cheese here. You go to the download page, just like anybody else's content. You'll have a description here. I've kind of included the ingredient type for those of you who are using my custom ingredients or even EA ingredients, and I'll kind of go over that here in a little bit. But you'll have some information here, and when you scroll down, I know it's way at the bottom of the page, but I wanted to make sure I get you guys all the information so you know what you're downloading. But as you get to the bottom of the page, you'll see the download is here. But before that, we've got these required and optional files. Now, required means you need it for the content to actually run in your game properly the way that it needs to run. And you'll see here that to use this content, you need to download the core crafting file. Now, if you click on here, it'll take you to that page. So that way you're aware of how that works before you install it as well. So this is just a way to get you all the information that you need so you can understand what the content does before you install it. Optional files are just anything that basically make it like a more immersive experience to use this piece of content, right? So here for the cheese, you can actually install this without the cheese making skill. You won't be able to craft it, but you can order it from Brazen Delivery and have it delivered to your house that way and use it. But if you want to craft it, then you'll actually need the cheese making skill. It's optional, you don't need it, but again, it kind of it gives you more to do, it gives you more to play with. So then you'd follow this page, you'd go and you'd download that. And then you can download the file here, and at the bottom there's any related recipes. So that's kind of in general how it works. The other thing is that when we're talking about like required files, everything kind of has a core file is what I call it, right? So how we have these different sections on the page, they actually correspond to a core file. So if you want to use any ingredients here, you would need the core file that corresponds with that. I have a tendency to over-explain stuff, so hopefully I'm not over-explaining it too much. But basically, if you want to use anything here, you would need that core file installed for it to function and run. And let me see, I think I have it here. Yes, I do. So I made this just real quick. It's like a flowchart kind of, but so we were looking at, where is it? We're looking at cheese, right? So it's kind of in this category here, which means you need the core crafting file. And if you use the core crafting file, you need the core mod. So the core mod is basically, you're gonna need this pretty much for anything that has like special mechanics in the game. It'll say it's required on the download page, so you'll know there. But just overall, kind of have an idea that you're probably gonna need this one installed for your other stuff to work. And you'll also need Scumbumbo's injector for this to work. So this makes it so that my stuff is modular. If you only want the cheese crafting, you don't even need to download anything else. You could just download the cheese, the core crafting file, and the core mod. And then it'll work properly. And like I said, you don't need anything else. So that's a brief overview. If you guys have any questions about that, go ahead and post them in the chat and let me know. I'll move on for right now, but if anything is confusing, like I said, I over-explain stuff sometimes, so if you feel free to ask me to clarify or simplify. So that's the site. That is kind of how you get my content. That is an overview of how my content works. And, you know, I think the biggest thing that I like to do is to make it so you guys can pick and choose what you want. I know sometimes it can be overwhelming because there's a lot of stuff, but sometimes some people only have so much space, so it's like it gives you an opportunity to kind of like, well, you know, I don't really have a lot of room for more content. My folder's already like, you know, 6 gigs, so maybe I only want a couple of really cool things. You can pick and choose that instead of having to like download everything or download a big set of something and go through it and, you know, pick at it. So there is that. And then I kind of wanted to show you guys my mods folder real quick before we get into the game, just so you can see how I keep my stuff organized, because it helps me kind of troubleshoot as well when there is an update. So let me bring this over here. Can you guys see that? Yeah. All right. And real quick, I wanted to thank everybody who came today and showed up. I appreciate you guys. And I appreciate you guys kind of wandering through this live stream thing with me. So thank you guys. So most of you probably already know, you know, your mods go in your mods folder in your EA Sims 4 folder, right? So how I got here was my documents, EA, The Sims 4, and mods, right? So I know this is probably a lot, like you're looking at a lot here, and I know some of you probably use other mods, so you know, obviously organize it whatever is convenient for you. I have it organized this way for a few reasons, and you can always kind of condense this. Like if you kind of want to follow this pattern, you see that my folders are kind of like named like crafting, right? So all these are crafting. Well, you could just throw those all in one folder if you want. When you're troubleshooting, these types of files are close enough that, you know, you can put them all in one folder and pull it out to see if one of those is causing an issue. They're all very similar, so it makes it kind of easy to troubleshoot that way. But I keep them separate just because it's easier for me to kind of like update and stuff like that. But yeah, so we've got all of our crafting recipes, and this follows the same format as my site. I tried to keep it as consistent as possible, so that way in a pinch, if you felt like you couldn't find the information, you could always kind of, you know, remember, hey, well, things are, you know, it's the same. So if I see crafting on the website, I can look for a crafting folder. So generally, I want to say like 99% of the time, unless I miss something, if, you know, I have it in my crafting folder, it means I can find it here. And so we'll have all the individual files in here. Now, why I wanted to show this to you is, again, it's for troubleshooting, right? So say we have an update and something is broken, it's triggering an LE. What is easiest for me, and I actually have on my website, if you go to reference, if it loads, my internet has been like spotty all day. You can see here, so this is for troubleshooting issues. If you're having issues, this is like a step-by-step process here on the right you can go through. And what I'm talking about right now is this kind of like 50-50 method, right? And what I put here And this is what I use to test. So if you see this little section here, if you're having an issue, so I would just remove a group at a time. Generally, if you have an issue, it's more likely to be with these top 3. So what I'll do is if there's an update and I'm having an issue, I will like grab my core mods here, right? And then I'm gonna pull those out and see if I get the same error or whatever. So that's just kind of an idea of how that works when I'm troubleshooting. The other thing I did is actually the core mods have gotten a little bit of an update with the way that I organize them. I know that there were a lot of people were having trouble distinguishing the core mod, the main core mods, which were what I was talking about. Like you need that to use like the crafting content or whatever. You'll need the crafting core mod. That's this category here. But there were also like add-ons, which are called, I call them the modules that go with the core mods, which kind of like expand on that. And those are optional. Those are generally in those files, you're going to have stuff that overrides an endgame file. And so it's got a higher probability to conflict with somebody else's content. And that's why I keep it separate. And that's why I call it a module. Because you don't need it, but it'll do things like add my custom tags to say like canning objects, right? So your jams. And it'll add my custom tags to that so you can use that with my other mods. So it makes it more immersive, but again, you know, in it trying to keep it modular and everybody can kind of pick and choose what they want. If you're using other content and it might conflict, then, you know, maybe that's one of those files that you don't use because it may conflict. So what I did is, now what I've got is we've got our core files, right? And you can see here I've organized them all in the same folder. There's a new file I'll go over here in a second. And then the modules I'm going to keep in their own kind of separate folder. You'll still download them individually. And I've started to keep some text documents here. So if you click on it, you'll see Nectar mod. Oh, sorry, I have a ginormous screen. Give me a second. So when you click on it, it'll kind of tell you what it does. So we see here we've got Nectar modules. Any module that ends with the word Nectar, so let's see here, we have 2, right? These 2. Any of those modules are going to add my custom ingredient tags to the Nectar from that pack, so it can be used as an ingredient. This is also something new that I added with the last set of updates. We're going to be able to use Nectar in recipes, so I can't remember which ones I did, but you know, adding a little bit of red wine to your pasta or whatever. So this is optional, it's not required, but if you add it, the glasses of nectar from these packs can be used as an ingredient in my other recipes. And then here, this is just any conflicting resources. I generally don't list the exact resource because there are so many of them. So if you're concerned that it may conflict with somebody else's, usually most creators will kind of put a little disclaimer or whatever in there, and this should be enough information for you to compare. If not, you can always ask the other creator what resources they modified and see if it kind of matches up. If it matches up, then you're gonna have to pick one or the other because you can't use both. So I've tried to do that. You know, when you guys go to download these, it'll be in an open folder from my website. And again, this will pretty much be what you see. I may do a couple of little edits before the final, before the folders are finished. But I'm hoping this will make it a little bit easier for you guys to figure out, you know, what you want to download and if something is going to conflict, just to give you more information. And also, it'll kind of keep you from having to go back and forth to the website. I know it can be, sometimes that's, you know, best because you get all the pictures and all that, but sometimes maybe you just want the information right there. So I'm trying to make it a little bit more accessible, you know, depending on where you're at. So there is that. Oh, okay. So I did want to go back and talk about the core mods. Now, the core mod is the one I was telling you guys that you need basically for everything, right? And that's this one here. I've kind of highlighted it. One is a package file. So that's, you know, most of you know, that's the Sims 4 file. That's what the game needs to recognize it to be able to work in game. And then we have a script file. It's a TS4 script. If you didn't know, TS4 script files, and this goes for anybody's cannot be more than one folder deep in your mods folder or it will not work. So keep that in mind. Here I have it in my mod core folder. It's only one folder deep, so it still functions. If you have multiple creators folders in here, you'll just need to keep that in mind. If you want to organize folders in my specific folder, for example, you're just going to have to think about where you're going to put those TS4 script files to make sure they function no more than one folder deep. So here's the main file. Now with the last update with Home Chef, they changed the way that custom ingredient tags work. I know it was frustrating for everybody because everybody had to like remake. Anybody who's using custom tags had to remake theirs if they wanted it to show up properly. And so what I did is I kind of took it as an opportunity, you know, I guess to make it more modular, which, you know, is my thing. But because some people did want to use my recipes, but they're like, you know, well, I don't want to use the custom ingredients. And, you know, like with Simple Living. The problem is with Simple Living, if I say, hey, any spicy pepper for this recipe for Simple Living, and my ingredient tags are part of what you're required to use, then somebody who doesn't want to use that, they can't make that recipe at all if they have Simple Living on. So that kind of was an issue before. So I kind of took this as an opportunity to solve a couple problems. And so now if you want my custom tags on your ingredients recipes, so like I said, if, for example, any spicy pepper or any pasta or something like that, you would actually need to install this file. It is separate. If you don't install it, then those won't show up in your game. So, you know, it's kind of a win-win. And, you know, maybe you get sick of playing with my custom tags. You could just pull this out for a little while and make my recipes without the custom tags. But it's going to be a separate file. It's a TS4 script. And when you go to download the core mod file, it will be in there. And again, I'll have the notes in there for you guys so you have some reference. But this is new. And that's really the only addition for the core mod files, outside of the fact that we're kind of moving the modules around a little bit. So, any questions, you guys? Oh, thank you guys. You're so nice. You're welcome for the readmes. I really hope that helps. I do my best. I know it can be confusing, and it seems like there's no seeming like there's a lot. There's a lot. But okay. Well, if you guys have any other questions, just put them in the chat, and I can address them later on. So I am going to move over. Oh, the other thing I actually did want to say, I am using. Oh my gosh, I forget the name of this. It's MCCC, I believe. This is how I get my LEs. And my cheats in game, you'll see it when I open it up. This is like my favorite mod ever. So if you are looking for something to, have your cheats kind of quick to use, you'll see it here in a second. When I get in game, I'll show you. But I love this mod. I'll put a link to it up as soon as I get a chance. But yeah, so there's that. And then the other thing I did want to mention when I go into the game here in a moment, let me get rid of this guy here. I'm using 2 lots that I downloaded from, the gallery. And these are the 2 lots. So Amarosa's Garden, I love this lot. It is so cute. And so this is like my home lot. And then I'm going to take a quick trip to a restaurant so I can show you guys the recipes in the restaurant menu. And this is the lot that I downloaded. So the first one's by Katsar, I believe. And the second one is by The Real Praline. So if you guys want to go download those, you should be able to find those on the gallery. All right. So let's head into the game. I'm going to change my screen here. There we go. And we're gonna load this up. Alright. So Oh, those are bees. That's what it is. I was like, are those flies? That's kind of gross. Maybe she needs a shower. All right. So let me kind of quickly, I'm just gonna zoom out here and let her kind of do her thing. And just briefly check my notes here. I want to make sure I don't miss anything important. So, okay, let's start with the, I guess, core mods. So basically, there were just a lot of updates. There were a lot of small things that were kind of going on. I know that I was trying to troubleshoot some things, like there were a lot of recipes that were marked as meat, you guys, and they were supposed to be vegetarian. I'm really sorry. I thought I fixed it a couple of times, but apparently I was missing some tags. So those are all fixed. Like with this, when Home Chef came out, I went over like every recipe with a fine-tooth comb. There were so many like small little things that weren't causing, it wasn't like triggering an LE in the game, so I didn't really know that it was an issue until, you know, some of you might know that I mentioned, you know, I'm packing up files to release, and I'm like testing it in game, and I'm like, why is it doing that? And it turns out there's all these other little things that needed updating. There were some issues with like pricing too. I don't know if you guys know, but my ingredients are like recipe based, right? So it's not just like an object, like it's an actual recipe. Your sim creates it and it spoils and all that. And something changed with the way that those were created, the way they're created in game. And so like the pricing structure was all messed up. And so, you know, you go and you make this ingredient, and if you've got a homestead and you're trying to like sell stuff, it was just like not happening. You'd make something and spend like, you know, 40 simoleons to craft it, and then it would come out and it would be like, it would have a value of $5. I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. So I had to go back in and I had to fix that. Let's see here. We've got the, for the core mod, the transfer ingredients, I've actually added it to the fridge here. Instead of it being a separate download, I figured it was just, it's 2 bubbles. Originally I didn't add it because I'm like, well, you know, there's a lot of stuff on the fridge. A lot of creators put stuff on the fridge. I don't want to overwhelm people, but it's just 2 bubbles. So now when you have stuff in your inventory, you can, without the extra download, you can just click on your fridge and say, hey, I want to grab all the fresh items, and it'll, your dairy and eggs, it'll pull them out for you. So this mod is originally attached to the core mod, which is required for most of my content, but I went ahead and added this because it doesn't conflict with anything. And then all the crafting menus have been updated, so we're all updated with the Home Chef. Let me see here, a good example. We'll just go to category. Oh, actually, let me back up. So the cookbook and the craft books have different menus. Let me actually, hold on, let me turn this down, guys. My audio. I'm gonna make sure it's not too loud. Oh, yes. Oh, we don't want to exit game. Okay, so like the menus. We have the filters in the menus now, right? So when we go to something like appetizers and breads, we have the filters. So I was kind of having a hard time because, you know, some of this stuff, the way that my menus were before, it didn't really make sense. Some of them still don't make sense. So I condensed these down. It's main dishes doesn't have multiple categories anymore. This is just going to be a fix for now, until I'm able to figure out how to do custom filters. It just, I had it set up before and it was like so few items, and it just didn't make sense that I had to kind of like reorganize it. It was, yeah, but even here, like main dishes, sweets, okay, that kind of makes sense, right? But then you start going into desserts, cakes, I mean, fish cake, meat cake, maybe, but you know, not enough to fill a whole section. So I condensed them down enough that it makes sense. Again, this is something I'll look at in the future, maybe coming up with some custom filters for you guys. But otherwise, these are pretty much the same. Cook by region has changed a little bit. It actually was cooked by culture. As I started going through the recipes, I thought it would just be better to do it by region. And I also realized that some of the recipes that they had in like Salvadorada were actually like South American recipes. So I instead of having a Salvadorada, I can't say it right. You know what I mean. I put them in Central and South American. I just thought that this better represented kind of the recipes. And there were a lot of kind of like empty menus because they weren't, they didn't really have like a whole lot of recipes. And this kind of condenses everything. It's a little bit more, y- you can find more recipes when you go into the categories now. Brazen Lotus recipes, these are just mine. This doesn't have as many menus. Like you see here, this has 5, and then it's got the subcategories here. I don't have that for my recipes because I don't have that many yet. But when these start kind of filling up, I will expand that section as well. Drink menu. I think I had a version of this before. I've kind of separated drinks by party drinks, which are more for like, everybody. And then, oops, wrong one. And then we've got like bar drinks, which are more for like adult themed drinks, right? Because some of those we don't want kids drinking. And then we've got the seasonal, the regular categories we had before. Canning and ingredients are pretty much the same. Summer recipes. This is every season. This will be different depending on what the season is. If you don't have seasons installed, then it won't show up. But right now we're in summer, so I've expanded these a little bit, and I'll be expanding them even more later. But for right now, there's enough for most seasons that it's immersive. If you want to look for a specific recipe, Cook by Diet is pretty much the same as well. Now these still have the filters though. Again, there's not really much you can do about that. Some of these are just not going to make sense for now. But they're all there. They're updated. Everything is working with the new stuff from Home Chef. And we've got our crafting. This is our craft books. So these are all of our crafting recipes. Quick note, preserving recipes are going to get an update, but it probably won't be until next week. There's some more in-depth stuff I have to do with that. For those of you who've used preserving, it's really kind of intricate because, things can be outside and they can dry or they can be in the cellar and they can cure. So it's a little more, I got to do some more tweaking for it to work right. Some of these recipes were actually giving me LEs. It's just little things, but I need a little bit more time. So I'll get those to you hopefully by the end of next week. And then cheese making. We'll talk about that in a second. Let me see. Did I cover everything here? I think so. Let's see. Brazen delivery, I fixed that. I know that there were some small issues with that. Some people who just had base game, it wasn't quite working properly. They wouldn't show up sometimes. So, the delivery people, sometimes they just route to weird places and there's nothing you can do. It's just the way that the routing or the delivery works. But there were a couple of issues where they wouldn't show up at all. All those issues should be fixed now. And if you were base game and you weren't seeing menus here for, I think it was Florian Farms and the Garden Center, you should see them now. These have all been updated and everything should work properly. Pantry ingredients, I think there were single items in here before. There are not anymore. The reason is this is kind of supposed to be bulk. That's why you're getting the discount. Later on, as this expands, I'll probably be adding a couple more stores to do like single items. But for now, that's what we're working with. So I think that was it for the Brazen Deliver. Oh, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but on one of the last updates I did, I added the delivery service to the mailbox. So for those of you who just have issues, period, with getting stuff ordered to the house, with the delivery system, you can just order it from the mailbox now. And I also added cheese making supply. If you're a high enough cheese making level, you can order from here as well, which I'll go over that in a second. So you can see you can order it from here. And these have been changed. So did I change these? Let me see here. Oh, I did change these. So these actually are no longer limited by hours. When you do that phone delivery, it is limited by hours, because the idea is that, people aren't working at night. But you can order from the mailbox whenever you want because you're going to get this stuff the next day. So there is that. I made a couple of updates, or changes I should say, to let's go to prepped ingredients. I'm kind of hopping around here, so just bear with me. But the prepped ingredients, so that's why all these recipes needed the updates, was because them introducing prepped ingredients, and you know, the how the prepped ingredients allow you to kind of like skip steps and stuff like that. I made a couple of edits to just the text strings because the batter ingredient actually has sugar in it. And, you know, if you want to fry something, I'm not going to fry it in a batter that it has sugar in it, right? So I just changed the name to sweet batter. Um, this was something that I actually was able to figure out a way to add new prepped ingredients. I didn't go crazy with it though. It was a process because you guys know I have my like pie dough and stuff like that already. So I've got my dough. I haven't made any batter yet, but I didn't want to take away from, you know, creating dough by hand, you know, just for people who don't own the pack, or, you know, even if you just want to do something where you're off the grid, and, you know, if I made it, you could only make it on the mixer, then that would kind of limit what people could do with it. So I'm like, okay, how do I kind of like make all this stuff work together? So what I did is I added a few new prepped ingredients, and what I did is I kind of tried to layer it, right? So you could use, okay, how do I explain this? So in some recipes you will be using dough, like the choux dough, right? When you go to make choux dough, I mean, choux dough is really for like very specific types of recipes. So in that instance, I was like, okay, I'm not going to like here, the pastry dough. I'm like, I'm not going to change that. I'm going to leave that for, you know, that's just something that you can use for that recipe. But what I did, let me see here, because I want to give you an example. Did I put it in pastries? Let's see. I think I did. Okay, so the choux pastry dough, what I was able to do, and this actually works base game, I was able to make it so that if you make the dough by hand, then, and you use that dough in this recipe, it will still reduce the cook time of this recipe. And to denote that, I put, you can see there in purple, well, I move it and you can't see it anymore, but in purple, I just made a note of that for this specific recipe. So if you have that ingredient, it actually will cut the time. So let me actually have her make this while I'm talking. I'm gonna have her make some dough. That should not all say cook, by the way. I need to check the strings on that. But I have the picture, so I know what I want to make here. What did she make? Oh, she's already making it. Did I click it? Oh, I must have clicked it already. So anyway, she's gonna make that by hand. Right on top of the mixer. She's gonna make that, and then I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like with that and without it. It works just like the prepped ingredient in that sense. But the dough is not going to replace any other ingredients. It's just going to shorten the cooking time if you use it for that recipe. So yeah, that was a little thing I kind of worked out. I'm like, you know, and then everybody can use that, not just people who have the pack. If you do have the pack, like I said, I've added some new stuff. We have things like egg dough and yeast dough. The yeast dough is going to be, it's for breads and stuff like that. And egg dough is for like pasta. So what you could do is you can make the egg dough here, and then if you go to ingredients and say you want to make some noodles or pasta, you can see here egg dough is going to be used as a prepped ingredient. If you don't want to use it, just uncheck it and it'll be the original ingredient. So I tried to layer it so that it wasn't like the recipes, that the custom recipes and stuff weren't overwhelmingly using the prepped ingredients only, again, for, like I said, people who don't have the pack. So there's that. And like all my recipes have been updated to be compatible with these. They don't all use one or the other, but I would probably say, I don't know, like 70 to 80% of my recipes will either use an ingredient that reduces the cook time or that uses a prepped ingredient. So let's measure all servings. And then, what did I say that was for? We said it was for pastries. So she's got it. It reduces the cook time. She's gonna grab it from the fridge. She's gonna make the frosting. I probably could fast forward it. And it goes straight in the oven. So that basically skips the whole dough step. Let's get rid of this and put it in here, and let's show you what it looks like without it. Oh, because it's pulling it out of the fridge. Duh. Hold on a second. I don't know where I'm going to put this. We're just going to leave it all over the counter. We're going to be a slob and make a mess. I'm going to clean that up later. No, I went back to ingredients. Sorry guys, it's been a long day. I am exhausted. Pastries. You can see I updated all my, what do you call it, the icons too. They were kind of all over the place before. But now you can actually see what you're going to be cooking. Your needle pointing? No, we're not going to do that right now. So see, she grabs something different. So this is if she's basically making it from scratch. So now she's going to make the dough. And then so it does cut a significant amount of time off from the crafting process. Let me see. Sorry, give me a quick second. Okay. Okie dokie. So she's gonna cook it. She's gonna make it just like she made the other. Did she pull the other one out? I didn't even see. Oh, yeah, she put it over here. All right. So the next thing I wanted to kind of go over is the changes that I made to canning and cheese making. Canning just kind of got some updates that I know that it was a little bit wonky, like learning the skill. Some things would take longer than others. That's been kind of updated and streamlined. It should function more like a normal skill, um, instead of kind of being all over the place. Cheese making has had a big update. I got some feedback about how it was kind of like a little complicated, and people didn't like not being able to eat the cheese after they crafted it. And I kind of like started thinking about it. I really wanted to differentiate it from the actual preserving, which does the curing, aging, and drying, right? And cheese making before kind of like felt like it fit in there, but it didn't. So I actually changed the way that cheese making works. So now it works more like nectar making. I added some neat little features to it. Let's see. So let's go to cheese making. You can make the fresh cheese and stuff like normal. Cheese making, you've got your ingredients. These are the only ones you can access from the craft book because you need the cheese press to actually, because you're going to put the cheese in there. So you need the cheese press to actually do the solid wheels, and in the future there'll be blocks of cheese. So we'll go in here and you can see that in the description it's similar to what it was before. There's still a time frame for the cheese to ripen is what I changed it to. It used to say cure. Ripen is actually a more accurate word for that. And so you'll see that there's still a ripen time, but it no longer requires any special conditions. Like nectar, you can just set it on a counter, put it in your inventory, and it will start to age. The other change that I made, let's go ahead and have her put this in here. The other change that I made to it is that you can take a slice of it and use it immediately. Once you take a slice from it, it will no longer ripen though. So the minute you take a slice from it, that's it. It's not ripening anymore. You're done. The other thing, and let's see if we can get this to finish so I can show you. So yeah, so you can take a slice from it right away, and you can use that if you need it. If you're hard pressed and you really need an ingredient, then hey, you know, let's go ahead and let's pull that slice from the cheese. When you first pull it off the cheese press, it's going to be raw. Actually, let me see if I can give you an example here. This is actually something that I added to all of the ingredients here. The dough and dairy, pasta, and anything that's basically raw and not cooked and that could potentially make you sick. You can see here in the description, it now says it's vegetarian safe, but it's also a raw ingredient. So if I told my sim, go ahead and eat this. Oh, she's in her PJs. She'll eat it now. Before you weren't able to eat the ingredients. I was kind of inspired by the new pack because you can eat like cookie dough and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm like, well, sometimes cookie dough can make you sick if you eat it raw. So she didn't get sick from eating that. Lucky. But there's a chance that she can. So if it's a raw ingredient, there is a chance that you can get sick from eating it. And you can see here, says it's unripened at the bottom. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention. In purple at the bottom, see how it says cheese and it's got an asterisk, and then it says hard cheese? Those are the ingredient types of this ingredient, and I added that to all descriptions, so you know, all you gotta do is hover over it and you know exactly what kind of ingredient it is. I wanted to make that a little bit more clear and, you know, easier for you guys to find what you need when you're making recipes. But below that, you'll see it says vegetarian safe, raw food. So this is a raw food until it's been ripened, and it says that in the description as well. This is ripened for, it needs at least 3 days, and it'll be the lowest quality of ripened, which I believe it's all based on flavor. So it's the lowest quality flavor is bland, and then you have the medium quality, which is, or the medium level, which is mild, and then I can't remember what the highest level was, but like nectar, it will increase in value as it ages. So you can set this cheese somewhere and, you know, have your sim make a bunch of cheese, and it sits there and it ripens, and, you know, you could have a $800 wheel of, or 800 simoleon wheel of cheese that you can sell. Also, once you've mastered the cheese making skill, you can click on any ripened. See, this is unripened, so you don't have an option here. But once it does ripen, you can click on it and sell it to the Fresh Farms Co-op, which is something that I added with the canning skill. When you max that skill out, you can actually sell it to the co-op. So I think that's something I'm going to continue with my mods, and any skills that I add as they max it out, they'll have that opportunity to just be able to, you know, you can click on it and sell it directly to the farmers co-op. I thought that was a neat little way that your sims can make some money. And when you sell it to the co-op, you also get, you're selling it for like 2 times the value. So, you know, the reward to maxing out that skill is you get that those extra simoleons. And then on top of that, if you sell them something that's been aged for, you know, 14 days, you're making like 1,600 simoleons for cheese. But it does require you to wait, you know, you have to be patient. So those are the major changes that I made to the cheese making skill. I think that it's actually a little bit more fun to play that way, and you know, like I said previously, it really kind of separates it from the preserving skill. There's a lot to that, and you know, it makes sense that if you choose to preserve, yeah, maybe you want to, you know, go through all the trouble of, hey, it's got to dry here and it's got to do this or it's going to spoil. But maybe if you're making cheese, you don't want to do all that. So I simplified it a little bit. Hopefully it's a little bit more accessible for people. And yeah, so there is that. And then the other thing too, I forgot to mention, I lowered, so for a lot of my custom recipes here, I lowered the skill levels. That was another thing too, about like accessibility, being able to make a lot of these recipes earlier in the game and not having to necessarily like max out your skill. The other thing too, actually, is I lowered all the prices. I'm sorry, I know the prices were really high originally. When I make my content, like, I make it so that, you know, you never spend more to craft something than it costs for the ingredients. And so, like, I have a whole chart and spreadsheet set up. And I didn't realize until later that I was basing those numbers off of, I think it was like the excellent quality value of the harvestables, and that's why those numbers are so high. So I went in, everything is edited, it still is, you know, the way it's always been, where, you know, you should not spend, if you went to the store and you purchased these ingredients, it shouldn't cost you more. You know, those numbers should be pretty close. This number to craft it here should be pretty close to what you would spend on ingredients. So there is that. Let me see if I missed anything as far as that's concerned. Oh, the other thing with ingredients. So let's go, no, we don't want that. Let's go to the mill, and you can actually see, so I have a couple of preserving, I have a couple of the old preserving recipes in here. I don't have the new ones because, like I said, they trigger LEs, and I didn't want this to be all over the stream. It was like popping up LEs all the time. But you can see here some of the upcoming preserving ingredients I'm going to be adding. Before, you used to be able to just put wheat, like the harvestable wheat, in here and get flour, but I'm adding an extra step to where you dry the wheat to get wheat berries, or, you know, you ferment the cacao to get cacao nibs, which are actually also a snack. And then once you get those things, you can put them in the mill, and then you can get these. So I've kind of added an extra step, but these things you can absolutely just, you know, pay to craft them if you don't want to do that. But so that's where this has kind of changed a little bit. You'll see the ingredients here. I have them installed just so it didn't look like there were no ingredients. I want you guys to know that there are going to be ingredients. Again, they're just not going to be available until probably the end of next week once I get those recipes updated. Anyway, let's go craft the bread flour. And then, because I want to show you this new mechanic I added to all ingredients. Let's go package it. Oh. Uh-oh. I messed up. Oh boy. Well, I'm gonna have to fix that. Let me see if it's... Oh, I shrunk it. I'm like, why is it so big? Let's try a different recipe. I may have packaged it incorrectly. I just repackaged everything today. So let's see if we can get another one to work. I tell you, every time you fix one thing, it's like something else breaks. Yeah, I must be missing something. Apologies, guys. Let me see. Let me just make sure. Yeah, she's T-posing. So I think I'm missing something. Let me see if I can pull it up from here. Let's see. Cook by category. Oh! Will it work? I don't think it'll work with this. It's not gonna work with these either. Shoot. Well, it'll work with the cheese, actually. I'll get that fixed, and then you'll be able to craft on there. Sorry about that. Like I said, I just repackaged all these files, so it's probably I missed something. Very, very tedious doing that. Let me move this out of the way, or not. We'll just leave it there. So if you look at it, it's unripened, and but you'll see that there's no spoil timer, right? Before, I think even with the cheese, if I'm correct, there was a spoilage timer, but this is how it's going to work for everything. So when you go on the mill and you mill a bag of flour, you're going to get the bulk bag, right? Well, that bulk bag is literally never going to spoil unless you take a serving from it. All my ingredients that are, so I've kind of separated ingredients into like shelf stable and then perishable. Perishable items are the things that you're gonna craft like in the ingredients list here, where you've got the dough and stuff like that, because that, you know, that's gonna go bad faster. Whereas when you're looking at like coffee, flour, I mean even cheese, right? Cheese lasts for a really long time if you haven't opened it up. So all these ingredients from here on out will never spoil until you take a serving from them, and then their spoil timer is going to start. You can still store them in the fridge and make them last longer. And the other thing is that if you are underground or you have like a cellar and it's underground, it's in a basement, any of my ingredients will spoil 50% slower if you put them in a cellar. So I know that that can be really helpful with, you know, rags to riches and stuff like that. It's an alternative way, or if you're playing off the grid, it's an alternative way to get your stuff to last a little bit longer. But we'll see here. Let's actually grab a serving. Again, it's not the same, but it's the same idea. She grabbed a serving, and you can see the spoil timer starts. Cheese has a little bit longer spoilage. I mean, you know, even though it's cut. And then you can see here, it says it's not aged. It should say unripe. I guess I still have a couple little things I need to do. So we're gonna have her eat this. Just because I want to see if she gets sick. I want you guys to see the buffs I made. Let me see here. This has been no, she didn't get sick. Oh, you know why? Because she's on Master Cheese, probably. I maxed her out. She actually has a maximum cheese making skill. So, that's the other thing too I wanted to show you real quick. MC Command Center, that's what it's called. That's that MCCC I was talking about earlier. I love this because if you click in here, you got cheats and stuff like that. And I just use like the basic, kind of like set of, I think I just use the cheats in the main one, but they have so many different modules that you can use. So this is a really great mod. I use it all the time to change. If you go to Cheat Sim Info, you can set the skill levels. So I use this frequently. Anyway. I fixed the drink trays. Drink trays shouldn't have a bunch of empty bubbles now. And these all function. These prices have been fixed as well. Alright. I think that is everything for crafting. Let me see here. You guys have any questions, or I mean, I think it's pretty much the same. I've just kind of elaborated on things and made them a little bit more immersive, and I've taken a lot of the feedback you guys have given me on kind of like what you want to see or how things play out in game, and I've tried to do my best to kind of accommodate that, and also just be as I want my stuff to feel like it belongs in game as much as possible. So, you know, trying to keep with that. Oh, and the other thing though, real quick too, is that the recipes now, if you have all the ingredients, it's not gonna cost you anything to craft it. I've gone back and forth with that. I did that originally, and then, you know, we went to, it's like a discount to craft stuff, so it would never be like 0 simoleons, but with all the changes that they made, I just kind of wanted to be more in line with what EA has done, and it looks like that's what they're kind of moving to with their recipes. So I went ahead and I just kind of matched whatever they were doing. Also, prepped ingredients can be used used for some canning recipes. Anywhere that I could do it where it made sense, I tried to add it. Again, where it made sense. So the canned tomato soup, this actually uses one of my custom prepped ingredients. It's prepped root veggies, so basically any onions or I know an onion is a bulb, but onions, potatoes, and stuff like that, to make that prepped ingredient for this specifically. I keep clicking on the wrong. Was it sauces? Yeah, sauces uses those too. So I thought that was kind of cool. And if you know, if you don't have it, then you don't have to. If you don't have the pack, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, the mailbox ordering. I was like, somebody had mentioned that. I was surprised I didn't even think of it. I'm like, that would have been, you know, an obvious option. Somebody mentioned. I'm like, yeah, that's the greatest idea ever. So I'm glad that all your suggestions and input, you know, I may not get to them right away, but where I can, I try to fit them in to, you know, whatever project I'm working on. Or okay. So yeah, I think that is the bulk of it. I hope that that wasn't too much or too overwhelming. And, you know, I think I got everything. There's a lot of small little fixes and updates. You guys will see that on the changelog if you really want to check those out. But there were like a ton of those. Like I said, one of the major ones was those vegetarian recipes marked as meat. I feel so terrible. People kept saying, they're like, my vegetarian sim keeps getting sick, and I'm like, they shouldn't. I thought I fixed that, but like I said, there's some tags I missed. They were hiding in there, and they will be fixed now. I promise. I've double triple checked it, so your vegetarian sim should not get sick anymore. But there were a lot of little things like that that got fixed and updated. In general, things should run a little bit more smoothly. So. Alright, well, I think this is a good place to wrap up. Thank you guys again for coming. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate your support, you know, and hopefully I'm gonna have these, like I said, there's obviously a couple things I need to fix before I get these uploaded to the Patreon folder and the website, but I don't think it should be any later than tomorrow night. And then I will get everything updated on the site and CurseForge by Sunday. CurseForge takes a little bit longer because they have an approval process, so it may take, you may not see those updated on CurseForge until Monday or Tuesday. And then the information on the website is probably not going to be updated till the end of next week. I have somebody helping me with that. It's a lot. But I'll try to get any really important information updated on the site this weekend. So like the core mods and stuff like that, I'll try to make sure that I get the information up for you guys this weekend, so you can just read through everything if you like. But all right, guys, well, you have a good night. Again, I appreciate you all, and hopefully I'll have some stuff for you guys soon to play with. So have a good